Today we're going to talk about how you can triple your chances of getting immigration status in Canada. In a previous video that we did entitled How to Double Your Chances of Getting Immigration Status in Canada, we talked about how you can use your spouse, if you have a spouse, to double your chances. And the way that worked was basically that if you have a spouse, then the thing to understand is that if one of you gets immigration status in Canada, whether that's a work permit or whether that's under a skilled worker program like express entry, then the other person can basically automatically tag along. And so the point in that video was that you shouldn't assume that one person is necessarily the primary applicant. What you should do is try to get either you or your spouse kind of involved in finding a job for themselves. And then if one of you finds a job, then that person can act as the primary applicant and the other person can kind of tag along later on. And so by doing that, you were essentially doubling your chances of getting immigration status in Canada. And so now we're going to add an additional layer to that. Now we're going to talk about how you can kind of use your children in order to triple your chances of getting immigration status in Canada. So if you have children, or at least one child, and they are of working age, then you can get your children to look for jobs in Canada. And so if your child is successful in getting a job in Canada and they use that job in order to apply or successfully apply for a work permit or for PR status, then while you can't automatically tag along, there are certain options that will open up to you as parents of that child. And so if your child gets immigration status in Canada, PR status, then one option is for that child to sponsor you under a parental sponsorship program. Now, while that's not the best option in the sense that it takes time, kind of knowing from experience, it takes a little while for those applications to go through, number one, and number two, there's a quota and there's a cap. They only accept a certain number of applications every year, and those caps get filled pretty quickly. It is nevertheless an option worth exploring. A second option that opens up if your child gets immigration status in Canada is for that child to basically apply for a super visa for you as the parent. And a super visa basically allows you to come to Canada for several years as a visitor. And so while visitor status isn't obviously PR status, permanent resident status, it does allow you to be in Canada. And while you're in Canada, you can kind of set the foundations, lay the foundations for eventually getting PR status in Canada. And so examples of things that you can do while in Canada in order to kind of lay the foundations for being better equipped to get PR status. One, you could improve your English language skills. You could look for a job in Canada that will open up immigration avenues for you. And of course, if you are successful in finding a job in Canada while you're here, then you could do a number of things, two of which would include, one, you could apply for a work permit to actually work in Canada. A second thing is to use that job offer in order to apply under programs such as express entry or other provincial skilled worker programs. So the bottom line here is that there are additional options that you can pursue, especially if you have family members that are kind of there with you, that are interested in coming to Canada along with you. And by kind of utilizing each person and allowing for each person to look for jobs independently, apply independently, then you're potentially opening up immigration options for all of you, for all family members. So hopefully you found that tip useful. If you're looking for any other information related to what we've talked about or any other kind of information related to immigration, we encourage you to visit Uniivaa.com.